the July 1st Affordable Housing Trust meeting to order at 12:32. This meeting is being conducted remotely and all votes will be taken via roll call. We'll do a quick check on mics and cameras. Brooke Moore,
I am here.
Meg Browers,
Here.
Abby De Molina,
Here.
Penny Dye.
Here.
Great, thank you. Let's see, Vicky Marsh.
Here.
Thank you, Vicky. Tracy McDonald.
Here.
Dylan.
Here.
Dylan, I need like 3 more coaching lessons on your last name, so forgive me.
It's Matt
And
Champel.
Mitch Empel.
Yep.
Mitch Empel. Chantal Murphy.
Aye.
Okay, great. With that, we'll jump into the meeting, right? We're recording. So the meeting's been called to order. I'll look for, Dylan, are there any changes, edits, or adjustments to the agenda before we look for a motion to approve the agenda?
No, there should not be any updates to the agenda.
Great. Christy, you good on agenda? You can just do thumbs up. Great. Look for a motion to approve the agenda as written.
So moved.
Thank you, Meg. In a second. By roll, Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Meg Browers,
Aye.
Abby De Molina,
Aye.
Penny Dye.
Aye.
Chantal Murphy.
Aye.
Thank you. Public comments for items not on the agenda. Are there any members of the public or members of the board as member of the public that would like to offer any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. We have minutes, approval of minutes from June 17th, June 26th, review and action.
Just
Go
to
ahead,
flag, Abby helpfully caught that there was a slight typo in the June 16th one. June 17th minutes, which we updated. It's not substantive, but I just wanted to flag that.
Great, thank you. Any board comments, adjustments, changes, or motion?
Move approval.
Thank you, Brooke. A second? Second from Penny by roll, Brooke Moore.
Aye.
Meg Browers,
Aye.
Abby De Molina,
Aye.
Penny Dye.
Aye.
Chantal Murphy.
Aye.
And Brian Sullivan's an aye. Moving down to announcements. Dylan, is this you or Christy?
I can do this.
Thank you.
So we just want to extend an invite to join the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, or the EOHLC, for virtual listening sessions to share your hopes for the Seasonal Communities designation. Established by the Affordable Homes Act in August 2024, the Seasonal Communities designation is designed to provide a unique set of housing tools to communities with significant seasonal variation in housing and employment. You can read more about the designation and sign up for one of the sessions by visiting www.mass.gov/info-details/seasonal-communities. There is a clickable link in the posted agenda. The virtual sessions will be held on July 9th, 2025 at 6 p.m. and July 17th, 2025 at 11 a.m.
Great. Thank you, Dylan. I have a follow-up question on that I'm going to save for the communications update. To see if that can go out in communications. Any more announcements? Seeing none, we'll move to the communications update. Hi, Florencia.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. So Brian, I don't know if you or Dylan want to start. I'm just here kind of to update you on the communications office and our resources nowadays. They have changed substantially since, I don't know when was the last time that I joined you, but it's been a while. And I know that the trust always has great ideas for outreach, and I just wanted to update you what is that we can do in-house without having to outsource any of the communications ideas or goals that we might have in mind. So, so right now the communications office has myself and 2 other people. One is an intern. It's a long-term intern, so we'll see how long he stays. But as in right now, he's with us full time. He's a graphic designer, and we just recently hired Jess Torres. She is our digital communications coordinator. She's replacing Haley that moved on to EGAM. And she's in a different role, but pretty much same support as Haley was giving the office. Just has a ton of experience with social media. I hope that if you are in social media, you follow the town. We've been very active lately, and we gain hundreds of followers literally every week. So definitely the town of Nantucket, Instagram, Facebook, and a little bit slower X are the places where the community can get information about the work that our departments and boards and commissions do. I think that those are my updates. We have newsletter, the Town of Nantucket newsletter, where we always include, and I know that you were about to ask about the announcement that is included in yesterday's newsletter. It has, again, a couple thousand subscribers. And we also have the housing newsletter that is not as often as our Town of Nantucket one that is monthly. The housing is quarterly. But we also send news flashes and mass emails and updates in social media as we see fit or as we are requested by departments.
Great.
I can keep going. So when it comes
Well,
to
let me see if the members have any questions. I have a few, but let me just see what they have. Penny?
Yeah, hi Florencia. I just want to say thank you for the work that you did on behalf of the trust prior to town meeting. It was extremely effective. And I also would like to know, you don't have to answer this right now, but going forward, I felt like we should probably have started our efforts sooner on that. And I guess that's a question. Would it be helpful to you if we get our information to you sooner than we did this year?
yes.
That's perfect. That's all I need to know. Thank you very much.
And to be honest, I don't think that it has to be right before town meeting that we start thinking about outreach. It has to be, I can come and join you every other month if you
Yep.
want. It can be a bigger item in your agenda where you discuss what are the goals that the Affordable Housing Trust has regarding outreach. And then me and my team, we can brainstorm on the better channels to reach out to the community. We can come up with ideas, videos, brochures, all that can be done in-house.
And it should be done throughout the year, especially at the times when we're not as busy, right? When we can ask people who might be willing to do a video, have benefited from what the town has done in housing. I think it's a great idea to have you join us on a regular basis. Thank you.
Yeah.
So with that, the idea that I was kind of working through is could we create I'll look at the 2 interns that are sitting with Christy specifically and request that they make an effort to create an annual content calendar to be delivered to the communications office. So then we can understand the number of Instagram posts, Facebook, newsletters, etc. And then we can work on an effort on infilling the spaces available on an annual basis because of the cycles that we know that are happening, like the transfer fee, the lead up to the Senate session, the next town meeting, regular newsletters, the seasonality of different people coming to and from the island. But if we can challenge those interns to work with staff to kind of create that, deliver it to you, and then maybe we can have something concrete to work on coming back as a board for the next meeting and kind of have an idea where we might want to insert certain topics or start a video campaign or something like that. At least we're working off of a calendar. So we're not asking you short term. We can give you 8 months in advance. We want to do this video. Let's get started.
That's
Sound
not
good?
to me, but let's see what Christy thinks about
Great.
it.
Thank you, and sorry that we joined a little bit late. I have Tom and Will. Today is Will's first day as the housing and real estate intern. And you guys all know Tom from being on the last couple of meetings. But you kind of took the thunder of what their main project is.
Shoot!
Really community outreach. And one thing that Will's going to be working on is the transfer fee advocacy and putting together communication templates for that. So stay tuned. We will have a package for you as they work through it this summer.
Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us, not just today, but at the office in general. Okay. And go ahead, Florencia.
No, I don't have anything else. And housing and communications, we meet quite regularly, so we can certainly discuss this more, and then they can come back to you with updates. But yes, looking forward to. I think that outreach on this is very much needed, and I don't see any reasons why we cannot do more.
Awesome. Excited for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
With that, I'll close communication update. Ask Christy, AKA Rachel, to take off her mic and present the Lease to Locals update and discussion and segue over to, there he is, Colin.
Awesome. So I should rename myself. So first, I just wanted to kind of set the groundwork for this discussion. We had Housing Nantucket and PlaceMate come back this past April and give an update as we were just going through our quarterly reports from those who receive funding from us. And we really started to think about the longevity of this project. We heard from Colin around some of the other projects and programs that they have in Colorado and California, and then how Lease to Locals is expanding kind of across the state of Massachusetts and a lot of the seasonal communities. So in your packet, you have a staff recommendation around the future of the program. And so what I did is invited Ann and Colin to come here to kind of talk about the current program and then this idea of a transition in which the Affordable Housing Trust would take over that role of providing the support and funding for the program, with administration potentially or most likely through PlaceMate, but it would be through an RFP. But everything would be kept in-house, and it lines up with the strategic plan of the select board and what we've talked about of building on this program and building on the momentum of starting with a Lease to Locals, perhaps moving into a rooted renters program where you're providing a subsidy that keeps year-round housing year-round, and then eventually a year-round deed restriction program. And so we've kind of been having this conversation of what would that look like? How would all this play out? You know, do we have the capacity as a staff to handle it? Because that was a huge concern last year. And really this really changed for us when other towns like Provincetown and Eastham and Chilmark have started to release their RFPs, that they've really done, you know, the big lifting that was being asked of the housing office last year. And we feel that we're in a place now where we have the tools, we have the staff, we'd be well equipped, and we think that Housing Nantucket has done a really great job of setting up the program and keeping it afloat while we were kind of getting our ducks in a row. So Colin's going to give an update as to the program now, but one of the requests is that the current contract with Housing Nantucket, their grant agreement is scheduled to end August 31st. And we would be requesting that be extended to December 31st and let the program kind of overlap while we're doing our project, our work on getting things up and running on the town side, and then kind of have a January 1st potential start date as that transition. So a lot of things, throwing you a lot of information is in that staff report, which for the public is posted on the public packet online. And I'm happy to answer any questions, or we can turn it over to Colin to go through his slides.
We have one member with a question first. Penny, to you.
Yeah, I just through you, Mr. Chair, I guess to Christy and Colin. When you're making your presentation, do you want us to ask questions as you roll, or would you like us to hold them till the end?
Colin, to you.
Thanks, Chair Sullivan. To Penny. You can ask. I've presented to you guys many times. I feel very comfortable for you to jump in and not wait till the end, especially because this is sort of building on to recommendations at the end. So
Okay.
please jump in. That would be great.
Okay, and then I just do have another question, which is year one of this program was funded by Act Now. That was a pilot program, right? And then we took it over the funding, the majority of the funding for year two, also a pilot program, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are we talking about year three now being a pilot program or not any longer? I guess Christy or Colin, if you could answer that.
Come to Christy.
I wouldn't continue to call it a pilot program. This would be the launch. And I think we've always talked about what the longevity of the program would look like and what it could grow into. And that's where having this in-house, we can build on that program moving
Thank
forward.
you.
My question as you move through will, as you summarize the existing program, deliver a better understanding of what's called rooted,
Renters.
I forget.
Yeah.
Rooted renter. Thank you. I'd like to learn more about that concept as you get through this in your kind of summary. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, great. And just to address that, Christy asked me to come back on July 15th and give a more robust presentation about the program is a rental preservation program that was piloted in the town of Truckee. We've since rolled it out in Ketchum, Idaho. It works really well in tandem with the Lease to Locals program. And so happy to answer kind of high level questions today. I'm not prepared with a more detailed presentation, but July 15th would be the time to do that if that's all right with you, Chair Sullivan.
Yeah, Cliff Notes are great.
Okay, great. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen then if that's all right, and get into slideshow mode. All right, July 1st, HC update for Lease to Locals. Kind of three buckets. Christy kind of highlighted the biggest thing, which would be, we've been working, and Penny, this great question. Is it a pilot? Was it a pilot year one? It's been kind of in flux, to be honest, because I think normally with Lease to Locals programs with Placemate, our interaction's been directly through a town and then an affordable housing trust or a budgetary committee. And so this has been kind of a journey for us, and I'm really excited to kind of have this culminate in what I think will be a recommendation and hopefully approval from AHT to RFP this out to bring it in-house and have it be both longevity and kind of more of a, I'd say, normal program where it's a private-public partnership between a private administrator like ourselves and the public entity. And so I think what we've done is a lot of really great work. We've involved the public side of things in the 24-25 grant. So I guess we'll call that the year. I'm sort of calling it year two, just because for me, it's how I sort of track everything. But really excited to sort of give you an update on what's been going on in this current grant year. And then I think we really want to have a discussion about renewals because we have homeowners that are kind of clamoring for information. And especially if we're getting signals that we want to keep doing that, I want to make sure that we're on the same page with renewals. And then lastly, I think, the kind of discussion is culminating into what Christy brought up, as well as, can we extend our current grant year? There's a good reason for that. And then, ultimately, hopefully can move forward pretty quickly here. And then I can definitely touch on preservation and kind of get Cliff Notes shared today, and then, be prepared for anything you want to know. That'll be helpful to, kind of get that ready for in 2 weeks from today. So feel free to just I can't see everybody's screen, so you could jump in visually, or Penny, I can see you raising your hand.
Yeah, if I could, through you, Brian, can you just tell us again, was it 32 properties the first year?
Yeah.
How many were last year or this year?
So that's all covered in here. I think the first slide actually, it's perfect segue if I can jump into the next slide.
Yep.
So in year one, which was the pilot year through Act Now, we had 22 properties. As you remember, the grant request for this current year included renewals for these guys. The idea was that, our natural indication of retention would be probably about 50% of the properties would retain, based on the fact that the switching cost is so great in being able to go back to short-term renting or sell, or these are properties that we wanted to hold on to. So the idea we had was that of those 22 properties, we thought if we offered a 50% renewal, we'd be able to get about 80% to retain, and that is exactly what happened. So we did a survey. We asked homeowners, if we gave you 50% of what we gave you in year one for your first renewal, would you stay on with the program? Interestingly, 17 of them said, yes, I need the money. One said, I'll do it without the money. And so that was great because that saved us some money, actually. But we budgeted $157,000. With that one that didn't renew that we thought would, we allocated 144,000 of the 157,000. If you recall, we also this was Julia from Act Now Community Initiatives had raised money from the private nonprofit Remain to fill a gap if there was going to be, this is getting a little in the weeds, but as we were moving away from kind of unrestricted nonprofit funds where we were pretty loose on the AMI and the income, you know, for the first 22, we knew there might be some that may not qualify for renewal. So that's exactly what we did with 2 of the properties. And it wasn't that they weren't income qualified, and you know, it was sort of our shepherd here to make sure that it fit the spirit of the program. It was just like a divorce, and you know, there were 2 scenarios where we just weren't able to meet the high bar we had for the AHT fund, so we used Remain for 2 of those renewals. This kind of shows the story that basically what happened is we think we did a really good job in the renewals, and we were able to keep 13,000. And the idea was we'd always be able to move that over to the kind of current new properties joining. So we'll call those the year 2 properties. Yes, Beck.
Okay. So the average per property, which probably isn't the way to do it, was $8,400.
Yeah, that's about right. Yep.
Okay.
Because the average for year 1 was about 17,000
Okay.
roughly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll keep going. So that's renewals year 1. I think that's good. Just like foundationally answers the question of what happened with those first Act Now properties. What that meant was for year 2, for current grant year, for new participants coming in with the AMI requirement for the AHT funds, and what we would see is what we think the program will look like going forward. We have $406,000 for incentives, which includes, the idea was that would include any renewals that came up then as well. And so there were 13 so far. We've had 13 year 2 properties participate. We used about half of the AHT funding that we've allocated for this, and then so here's the balance left as of today. And what this looks like is basically we thought we would have a bunch more lease up in the spring, and I think the last time we presented to you in April, we thought we'd have a bunch lease up, and they're kind of now indicating they want to wait until the fall. So this is like the first point of, okay, we haven't spent all the money yet, but we've got a lot of good interest in the pipeline, and I've got a slide for what does that look like, and this is why we're asking to keep the grant going through the end of the year. Penny, you have a question?
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry to ask so many questions. I wasn't here for your last presentation, so
No problem.
excuse me for that. But so on this one, so 22 units the first year, dropped to 13 the second year, and you just explained why. I'd like to know what the breakdown, you're probably getting to this, of what the 13 are. Are they 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, rooms only, 3 bedroom? I'd also like to know the percentage that were previously short-term rented, which is the basis, one of the bases for this program initially. And then if it's 13 at 202,500, that's 15,576 per unit, right? From
Yep.
8,400. Okay, thank you.
I don't have those slides here. I could unshare, pull up the slides the last time we presented, or I'd be happy to email them. I have that breakdown.
You could just email them to everybody. That'd be good.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt, Colin. I just wanted to let Penny know that was both of those data points were in his last presentation. So I'll just make sure that every trust member has all of the slides moving forward.
It would be helpful just to see it sort of side by side currently. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, sorry for the interruption. Okay.
No, that's great. No problem. So then the current pipeline, we call this the kind of year 2, property owner funnel, people interested in the program. So we'd have $203,000 left for them through the end of August if we were able to spend all of it. And the current pipeline, people interested, kind of range in dates from July into early 2026. As you recall from many of my presentations, it's kind of a long sales cycle to get someone to convert their property, convert a short-term rental, not use their back cottage. And so we've seen this sales cycle continue to sort of take 6 to 9 months. And we've about $293,000 total in possible grants if all of those converted. These are people we've been talking to, often for 6 months or longer. We've also done a marketing push to fill the funnel. And so, this is kind of an ongoing strategy we use. We just sent postcards about 2 weeks ago now, and we've been getting leads, which is great. And we expect to do more marketing just because we know all of these 15 won't convert, and we want to spend, the money and get people housed into the, fall. And so this is kind of the state of where we're at today. And Chair Sullivan, you have a question?
Yeah, on the 15 interested properties, are they coming in as with prospective tenants, or is there a pool of tenants that would be connected with?
It's usually about half and half. So a lot of these folks have said, I'm really interested in doing this. I've been talking to someone for a while about it. I can finally pull the trigger, but we can't start till November because we have Columbus Day bookings. And so, we can actually get, this is one of the things that Anne and I talked about is, we could get like stronger confirmation from folks, and especially if we're signaling that, we do have the funds, right? This is a bit of what I was saying earlier of sometimes being in perpetuity of, or purgatory of not knowing, are we gonna keep funding this program and are we doing renewals? It's caused angst for both us and my operations person that takes the phone calls, because we're saying, hey, we got to make sure we have the funding available. So to answer your question, about half are lined up. The other half will tell us, hey, we're going to go out and look for tenants. They can post on our site. They can find it via word of mouth. We have obviously restrictions on who they can rent to. We do have a pool of interested renters on our website that we email whenever a property comes online. So finding tenants has never been the issue. I don't know if that's where you're going with that question.
Less about the finding the tenants, but I'm just curious, are people who participating already arriving with tenants, which is, I'd like people to ultimately to arrive without tenants because it means we're supplying the marketplace more, right? Would be the idea. And then the follow-up on this, I'm just curious, and I don't necessarily need to know now, but 5,000 addresses is a lot of addresses considering there's 12,000 properties on the island. So I don't know how we're figuring like your criteria in what is potentially available as a unit that could be just to be more effective. For a postcard campaign to be effective, it's got to go out 7 times.
Yep.
And so to send it 35,000 pieces is a lot.
Yep.
On a program. So how do you get more efficient on your list?
And I'd love to chat with you about that further. We use a website called propertyradar.com, which is real estate intelligence software. And I'm able to filter by a lot of different categories. So these are all addresses where the tax address is not on the island. So vacant, second home, whatever you want to call it, short-term rental. And then I filtered out land and filtered for assessed value under, I want to say 4 million. There's a couple different vectors, and then I filtered out a few other things. So I'd be happy, actually, that'd be a great thing to follow up with, maybe directly on you, is strategies for reaching those folks, and thinking about our previous presentation, communications, right? I think that'd be great.
Awesome. I love that. Okay. Penny?
A couple of things. I wouldn't discount properties over 4 million. Many of those folks may well have a guest house that's not occupied.
Mm-hmm.
First of all. Secondly, it sounds to me like what you're saying is a commitment for multi-year funding is going to alleviate a lot of the uncertainty in how you plan going forward. Is that, yeah, okay.
Yep.
And lastly, the 293,000 that's not been spent, where is that money? Was it invested? Was it generating any money in the meantime?
It's been reimbursement. So I think it's sitting with you guys. Christy, maybe you can address this, or Anne, of how, we only submit for reimbursement via Housing Nantucket. So I don't think it was like a lump sum brought to Housing Nantucket that's been held on to.
That's helpful to know. Okay.
Yes, through your Chair Sullivan, that's correct. We pay once a property is secured and we receive the invoice from Housing Nantucket.
Thank you for that.
Okay. So then kind of shifting gears into renewals, and Penny, this is a great segue because of the sort of continuity. There's not just continuity for owners that are interested in participating for the first year. It's all the owners that we've secured for the first 22 in year 1 and the 13 for year 2. So the direction originally that we were given was really just for those 22 properties and trying to get as many as possible, but we had dangled the idea and modeled out a second renewal. So maybe I was trying to think of the best way to word it, but there's a year one incentive, and then there's the first renewal and the second renewal, which would take you into 3 years. I think that's the easiest way to think about it. But for the intents of the rest of the few slides, that's how I'll talk about it. So this is the incentive per qualified tenant. This is kind of the best way to think about it because we're paying per qualified tenant, and depending when you were doing the math and saying, okay, that's $15,000. It's a blend, right? So two-ish qualified tenants would be, 19,000, right? Or 18,000 or above. So the idea was that if we offered year one renewals, which we did, we'd offer half that amount. So then our cost is obviously half as much. And then if there were another renewal, it would be half of that, so 25% of the original amount. We suspect, based on, I think this is a real shot in the dark today, that we'd have some retention that was not 100% from renewal 1 to renewal 2, because as you can see, the amount goes down. We'd like to verify that with the survey. So part of the discussion today is, if we want to do renewals, why don't I go back to those 18 that are in year one and say, hey, we're offering a third year, a second renewal. Here's the amount. Would you be interested in doing that? We suspect that because they've, sort of stuck it out with these tenants and made the shift, that this would be a nominal amount that would be, not insignificant, because it would still be in the range of, let's say $4,000 on top of what they can collect for rent. So we would like to verify that to see if the retention is right, or roughly the same. But yeah, this is kind of the model of renewals that we think makes the most sense. We don't do this in a lot of any other markets. So you guys are kind of trendsetters here and trailblazers. A lot of places, as we've talked to Chilmark and Eastham and Orleans, they're interested in multi-year, but they're starting out with one. I think we're farther along now, and I think this is a great model for considering, especially in higher real estate markets. And as I said, switching costs is so low. This is a great model to consider for other places. So I love taking this as something we can maybe extrapolate and bring to other places as well. Just wanted to put that out there. And Penny, I see you have a question.
Yep, what's me again?
Go for it.
I'm curious why 1 bedroom and 2 and more bedrooms are the same price.
It's per qualified tenant, so a 2-bedroom would be presumably 2 people in there. It's just the worth or the value that we had for a private room versus a studio. Think of it more of like studio versus private room versus 1 bedroom. So if I were to rent out a room in my home, that shouldn't be worth the same as, for one person, that wouldn't be the same as a full 1-bedroom standalone back cottage. So it's not, so most 2 bedrooms have been, 2 or more people, often 3 qualified tenants, and it can go up from there. So it's not, I put it here just to show the qualified tenant, not necessarily to show what you get per unit size.
So it's per individual.
Correct.
Okay. You might say individual here, qualified individual tenant.
It's just the qualified tenant is how we pay it, because
in my world, a tenant is the group that's occupying. They are the tenant.
Yeah, that's fair. We can tweak the terminology for future presentations.
Thank you.
Okay, so keeping going down that train of thought for renewals, looking at the projected spend, this is kind of with the idea of what Christy has suggested, that we would expand the grant year to include the year 1 renewal 2s and the year 2 renewal 1s, because they would all fall into you can kind of see the demarcation line of people that leases ending this year, this calendar year. We'd roll them into the grant year so that we could, so that we could offer these folks a renewal. And again, the idea is that year 1 renewal number 2 would be 25%. The cost is, really not that much in the grand scheme of thinking about, this is 10 properties at 9 properties. We'd expect to retain 6 of them, let's say, for a cost of about $24,000. For year 2, of the 13, we've had 6 of them where the leases would end in this calendar, or the new leases would, the lease would end this year, the new lease would begin in this year too. That would be a 50% incentive, and that would cost us about $43,000 if we kept the same retention rate. So that, the $200,000 that we have left for the rest of this grant year, calendar year, we eat up about 110,000, more or less. It's, you know, not an exact amount, for the renewals if we wanted to do that. Any questions on that?
Sorry, me again.
Yeah.
I'm not totally understanding why the price is going up each year per tenancy.
The price is going up. The cost of the grant per unit.
Yeah.
It just varies based on the number of qualified tenants in the household. Because back to this chart, you know, if we had a whole bunch of one bedrooms with one person, cost per unit's down. If we have
Yeah.
more larger homes, it'll be more expensive. So it's a blend. It's kind of what it's been shaken out to is about $16,000 per unit for year one.
Regardless of the size, it sort of averages that, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so the subsidy was most generous in the first year, right?
Yeah.
And then it's declined in generosity. I don't want to put it like that, but the amount has decreased in subsequent years.
Correct. Or that's what we're talking about today. We have not done a renewal number 2 for those first 2 yet. If we said we didn't want to give anybody and say, hey, you're on your own, we expect retention would probably be lower. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe this is that's where the discussion comes in, and strategically what kind of policy do we want to offer here. I don't have a great blueprint for should we do it this way or that way. This is what was discussed you know, many meetings ago, like over a year ago, of hey, we definitely want to continue retention. We know that, you know, the properties could go back to doing what they did before, and so we could offer nothing and say we hope that those 22 now down to 18 stay at 18. But I suspect that this, and just from a cost standpoint, even if you include all the ones for the, you know, the 18, including the rest of the year, it's still a pretty nominal amount of money. And you know, my personal kind of point of view is I think this does make sense, and especially since you offered a first renewal, why not offer a second renewal? But to your point about a step down, I think this approach makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would also say, I think in determining the success of this program, I think there are a lot of levers involved here, and a declining number of participants annually is raising, for me, red flags. That's all. I just want to throw that out there, but I'm perhaps not giving the right weight to each of these levers in understanding this. I guess I would say that, although I am supportive of the concept. Thank you.
And I think just to address that, that's the idea of then having another grant year. The hope would be that more come in the top. And we have had people who didn't get renewed move into a new unit that came online. It's not ideal to have to move every year, but I think the idea here is this is a stopgap. As Christy talked about, you know, this is an arrow in the quiver of the housing department's, you know, I guess whatever you call that thing is. And so, you know, ultimately we want to, you know, have this so that we kind of stop the bleeding, so to speak. And I think this strategy helps with, well, it's declining participation from, you know, the first year, and the third year still having, you know, more than half the units participate is great. And the cost is, as I said, sort of nominal. So it's definitely a discussion point of what amount is the right amount, whether it's 0, 25, 50, you know, I don't think we'd want to go up. But you know, we could look at doing a different amount, certainly.
Yeah, I think the word is arsenal. I'd like to follow up and ask for some staff to do some modeling on different scenarios before we make a decision on this. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Penny. Brooke?
Sorry, voice problems. Through you, Brian, to Colin, can you help us with a little narrative about those property owners who did not renew, and as to why? Because I think that might answer Penny's question. I mean, there's could be a lot of reasons why people don't renew. It may have been the reduction in the incentive, but it also may have been family circumstances or this or that. So I'm curious if you have any qualitative stories to tell.
Sure. And off the, you know, sort of, I remember several, because when we surveyed people, they said, no, you know, we actually, this was inherited a year ago, and this is a great stopgap for us for the year before we decide to sell it. And so being able to offer that rental for a year was great for us and great for the tenants. And they went eyes wide open, telling the tenants, I'm only going to do it for a year. So that's definitely, I remember one scenario of that. Quite a few people said they were going to go back to using themselves or go back to short-term renting, that they wanted the full incentive amount. But again, of the 18 out of 22, there were only 4, right? So I think it was I think every indication is that the from year 1 to year 2 being 100% to 50%, 80% retention was really strong. And so we're never going to get to 100%, even in none of our markets are we at that. Our average is around 70%. Across the board. Truckee, California, and Lake Tahoe is where we've been doing this the longest. They have some additive things, which is there's a short-term rental registration wait list. You can't short-term rent ADUs or multifamily. There's a lot of restrictions in place that then if someone pulls off of the short-term rental market, they can't go back, right? And so we don't have that here. So I think offering the incentive is good for the step down. And again, I could be totally off base with the 65%. We very may well retain all of these folks because they've been now doing it for going on a 3rd year. So the survey will help. Penny, I think to your point, some modeling can be done pretty quickly in conjunction with Christine Dillon, and be able to come back and say, yep, we want to offer. I think dangling out there I think we already know that so I go back to this slide here. I think we already know that of the 13 of the 6 that are ending this fall, that the 50% will be a good, high success rate of getting the most renewals that we think we can get for, not using 100% as the incentive amount. I think this one's the one we need to validate. But I would start, and the way we've done this, and Anne at Housing Nantucket asked us, how do you survey folks? Well, we start by just saying, we'd like to offer, have you considered what you're doing next year, the lease ends rather, and we want to offer you a renewal. You've already gotten one from us. Here's what we're going to offer for the next year. Would you be open to renewing with your same tenants, or with, replacing them with qualified tenants if they don't want to stay? So I can have that, done in several weeks. My placement offices are closed this week. So I could start on it next week, basically. I'm here today on my day off.
Thank you for being here on your day off.
You're welcome. No, I mean, I would be here for you guys any day.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Megan?
Thanks, Chair Sullivan. I just wanted to make a comment that I won't be able to make a comment on next meeting's discussion about this program. And so I want to share that I think for the amount of investment we're putting toward these properties, considering that we're able to find year-round housing, switch short-term rentals to year-round housing for families. We're talking about, potentially a couple dozen families or a couple dozen islanders who are able to find something to live in year-round, and the investment on our end is relatively small, pennies on the dollar, compared to what we're trying to do with year-round deed restriction programs or purchasing properties. A single family property that we own, millions of dollars, $100,000. So I think as we work toward getting to a place where the Affordable Housing Trust and the Housing Department has a full arsenal of opportunities to enable people to live here affordably year-round, this is a really amazing stopgap program that's getting families and people in year-round housing. So I think what you guys have done has been amazing. I'm thankful for Housing Nantucket and Lease to Locals and Placemate for all the work they've done. And I just don't want us to lose sight of the goal that a small investment is having a big impact on year-round families and making year-round housing possible for lots of people. And that is ultimately the goal. And it is not an expensive program in the big picture. So thank you, and I appreciate it, and I support it.
Thanks, Meg. Colin, do you have a couple more slides to go?
Yeah, we'll just go to the next one. I think this is really the last slide. So I think the first thing is, should we offer renewals for year 1 properties to get their 3rd renewal at 25%, which we can, sounds like, I think it's good direction to say, let's get that survey before we make that determination. But we can, quickly come back with that and look at the modeling. And then the second one would be for the year 2 properties. Do we want to offer them a 50% renewal? So I think maybe Chair Sullivan, I'll let you decide how you want to address this for giving direction, or I don't know if it necessarily needs to go to vote. But I'll pause for that one first.
I think to make a real decision on it, for a vote will be to come back after you've gone through the survey. So I would encourage you to do the survey and then come back to us with that, so we're able to vote on the percentages.
Okay.
It feels like that was the lead there.
Yep.
Yep.
And then request number 2, can we extend our 24-25 grant through the end of December, which would allow for those renewals, as well as roughly with the budget we have remaining, if we kind of kept the renewals where we modeled them on the previous slide, it would allow 8 or 9 properties to participate, which would bring us up to right around where we thought we would be, around 20 properties for year 2. Again, sort of the seasonality is such that we want to ask to be able to do this through the end of the year. And then this kind of same request aligns well with staff's recommendation to bring the program in-house, RFP out the administration, and have that sort of new grant year and sort of next wave of funding start in January of 26, January 1st.
So Christy, help me with this here. Thank you, Colin. Christy, help me with this. I think in, sorting through the order of this in a vote or motion, it should probably be broken out in a couple of ways. First being the staff recommendation. I just lost the line. Let me go back to the slide in my packet.
Oh, I can pull this back up.
I got it. Oh wait, no, it's not in the packet slide. Basically, it would be look to the recommendation of bringing the in-house starting first as a motion and a vote, and then secondly to continue the funding that's in place through the end of the year. I think is what makes sense to me in the presentation and conversation. Before I go any further, I'll come to Abby.
Thank you. Sorry, as I stuffed my mouth with a cookie.
Nice. I worked as a waiter once. I caught you right.
Yeah. But if you want, after my comment, I don't know if I'm able to make the motion, but I can. But I mean, I just think I kind of wanted to second what Meg said. I really like the idea of us bringing this in-house. Thank you to Housing Nantucket for managing it, but I like the idea of us, especially like when we're thinking about being on par with our peers, hearing that other communities in the Cape and the Islands have kind of figured this out. I like the idea of us being consistent, like when we think of a regional sense, that like I think that's a really good idea to think about, so that Nantucket isn't an anomaly and that we are very much being on par with our peers. Like I think Christy mentioned that they had done a lot of the work, which is great. So we're not necessarily the guinea pigs, but I like the idea of us bringing it in-house and then, being able to show that we're doing something similar to the rest of the region, because then I think if we have to do further advocacy and things like that, being a part of a larger group will obviously make it a little more effective in the future. And like I said, thank you to Housing Nantucket. But Brian, did you want me to make the motion or does someone else have to make it?
If there's any other comments, let me just see. Penny, do you have a comment?
Yes, I didn't, did we discuss us taking this? Why would we be taking this back from Housing Nantucket? Do we have a discussion about that?
So it's in the staff recommendation. I'll come to Christy to kind of verbalize that.
I would like to understand the rationale. Thank you.
Yep. And I just want to also understand that our staff has enough capacity. So Christy.
Yes, thank you. So Penny, when our housing department was really looking at what are kind of our strategic goals around the select board strategic goals, our housing goals, we want to be able to build on this program, not just to have, we've heard from the community, Lease to Locals is really powerful in converting underutilized space. And then we hear from people in the community that say, I'm already, quote, doing the right thing. I'm already renting. So how do we launch a program that is similar to what Colin's going to discuss next meeting, which is rooted renters, and how do we keep year-round housing year-round and not have those landlords trying to then, convert, or because they can't make ends meet, end up selling their house. Maybe something like this could keep them renting year-round, and ultimately building that pipeline from creating year-round housing to creating in perpetuity a year-round deed restriction. And so as we were talking about this, it felt that if we're going to be building on the program, then it made sense to have like one program with one administrator, all coming under one spot instead of everybody trying to do different programs. The second big thing for me was when the other towns in Eastham and Chilmark launched their programs. We really have the roadmap of, the RFPs are created. This is really the first time that PlaceMate has worked with kind of a third entity, and there's been kind of three parties in the mix for doing it. It's and I want to speak for Housing Nantucket, but there is a burden for them to fundraise, and so like having, again, being able to expand the capacity, having the funds for us to be able to do the administration, felt like these things kind of lined up at the right time.
Just
Go
quick,
ahead, Penny, for the follow-up,
yeah,
and
just
then
a
I'll come to Brooke.
very quick follow-up. So are you saying that we are working towards recognizing people who are already renting below market to year-round people?
So that will be that was the Cliff Note version I was looking for from Colin on his Rooted Renters program, which will be at a future meeting.
Great, thank you. That's it for me. All right.
Christy, can I ask that on the agenda, when we talk about rooted rentals, we re-look at the tax credit available for people renting under market?
Yes.
I don't know that we got anywhere with the assessors, but I don't, okay. Now, Brooke?
Yeah, I think the thing that's really interesting about this program, when we think about, transitioning properties from seasonal or not being rented at all to year-round rentals, there's a lot of narrative of the community of, bad stories about bad experience with year-round renters, or people having had trouble, or I'll never rent year-round again because I had one bad tenant. And I think what this does is it sets the stage for people to get comfortable with having year-round tenants, to seeing the value of participating in a year-round rental for the community. It's almost like a launching pad for people to mix up my metaphors, dip their toe in the water of year-round rentals, with a lot of the logistics managed by Colin and his team in terms of vetting and doing all of that. And I think it has incredible value as a pipeline for any longer term programs, or even someone selling us a year-round deed restriction down the road. If they have a good experience having a tenant who's in there year-round through this program without a long-term commitment, they might then step into the next stage of a series of programs where they take a boatload of cash up front, rather than it being a subsidy parsed out over time. And so they become, when they're under the housing office, they become part of a suite of tools that can be explained to someone. Oh, you can jump right into a year-round deed restriction, or you can start here and see how it goes. So I think having these multiple programs is really valuable. And I honestly support the third year incentive right now. I don't feel like I really need to have more information, because I think it also gets us more data on how many people stay with a declining incentive. Is it just about overcoming the fear of renting year round? And then they just run with it. And how many people need the subsidy financially, are doing it because they absolutely need the subsidy. So I think by extending for another year, we collect a whole lot more data. So I don't know whether waiting on that presents any problems, Colin, in terms of lining up the renewals and so forth. I mean, if it's a couple of weeks, that's fine, but I don't want to wait too long to extend that second year renewal opportunity, because I think it's important to seeing how the program plays out in this community.
Thanks, Brooke. I'll add a couple of comments that I have. Motion on whether the trust were to take over the program, and then we'll look for a separate and second motion about extending. My thoughts and comments are twofold. I've recently been having concerns. We need to be tracking and considering year-round rentals as a whole on the island, and this is sort of the beginning of a registry opportunity. We want to be cautious across the board about the inflating year-round rents, and so understanding this program and what's going into it. We want to not participate in inflating the price point, but this could be the beginning of understanding the entire year-round rental market and work away from subsidizing over occupancy and the driving of higher rates. So I just want to put that out there as a thought process in general. With that, coming back to you, Abby, are you still interested in making a motion for the Affordable Housing Trust to take on this program starting January 1st?
Yes, I was gonna say I forgot all the wording of the motion, but I would make a motion for the Affordable Housing Trust to take on this program starting January 1st, 2026. And then, was there something else?
We'll do, I think we do that
Okay.
as a vote, and then let's take the funding as a separate vote. Is there a second on Abby's motion?
Second.
Thank you, Meg. Vote by roll call. Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Meg Browers,
Aye.
Boris Bell,
Aye.
Penny Dye,
Aye.
Abby De Molina,
Aye.
John Tom Murphy. And Brian Sullivan's an aye. And so then I think we're looking for a second motion to extend the granted funds to be used through the end of December 2025. Do I have that?
That's the 293, right, Brian?
Thank you for bringing the number in. Abby, do you want to run with that since the language
Yeah.
is there?
So I'll make a motion to use the 293,000 in grant funds through the end of the year, December 31st, 2025.
And I'll just put that as a friendly amendment, any remaining funds to be rolled over.
Yes, and any remaining funds to be rolled over into fiscal year 2026, starting January 1st, 2026.
Great. Thank you. Vote by roll call. Brooke Moore.
I think
It's not fiscal year 20,
Oh, you're right.
Well,
Well,
it's
Calendar,
calendar year
yeah,
26,
yeah,
because
calendar year,
we're in
correct.
fiscal 26, but yes, aye.
You know what? I don't think I took a second on that, so I'm going to take
second
that
it.
as a friendly amendment, and then I'll look for a second on the motion.
second.
Second from Penny. By roll call, Brooke Moore.
Aye.
Penny Dye.
Aye.
Meg Browers.
Aye.
Boris Bell.
Aye.
Abby De Molina.
Aye.
John Tom Murphy.
Aye.
Brian Sullivan is an aye. Did I get everybody? Everybody just moved. Think I got everybody? Okay. Let's go back to the beginning of the agenda. Colin, thank you for the presentation.
Can I ask one question? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just to think of through you, Sullivan, to Brooke's comment about the renewals. Just thinking about the time we did this last time, it took about 4 weeks to get all of that data back. We're right in the middle of the summer. There's a second homeowners that are often going to be at their property or maybe at another property. If the chair would entertain a vote on the renewals at 50% for the year first renewal and 25% for second renewal, I could go back and validate it and come back if it didn't look good. But I think that to Brooke's point, we may not be able to come back till like say, middle of August, and we have first leases that for year one that are rolling over. I just looked September 15th, so it would be cutting it kind of close. If that was something this board felt comfortable with, knowing that we've got a plan in place and we could come back if there was an issue. Otherwise, I would be afraid that we'd be waiting a little bit.
So how many leases do you have that are rolling over between August 1st and October 1st?
October 1st would be, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 leases. There'd be 5 leases that would be ending between now and the end of October.
Okay. Staff, do you have any comments?
I think if it's, sorry, just processing on the fly. I would say that we could have this a recommendation at the July 15th meeting, and that way we can have everything in front of the trust members in time to think about the incentive amount, and then be able to move forward from there. And in the meantime, maybe Colin can be reaching out to the homeowners and collecting some initial data.
Colin, I hate to slow you down, but I think that on the fly, it might be best for us to
Yep.
look at it on the 15th.
I was just trying to run with it a little bit with Brooke's comments, but
I appreciate that for a lot of reasons. Thank you.
great. And did you want me to give the rooted renters high level what that is and what that presentation will look like next week or 2 weeks from
Yes,
now?
one paragraph cliff notes, that would be great.
So I'm reading my notes on the screen here. So, rooted renters is meant to preserve existing below market rentals. The way we've run this in Truckee is that it's a multi-year incentive that's much lower than lease to locals. It's meant to attract owners that could not access lease to locals because they're already renting long term. And we had really strong participation in Truckee. They put $500,000 into the program last year. They're putting $1 million into it this year. And it's, really strong interest both from the renters and the homeowners. They also have a deed restriction program that this nicely dovetails into. And so I'm happy to share different ways in which that could, be considered on Nantucket as it relates to how we've done it in 2 other tourist communities, Ketchum, which is in Sun Valley, and the town of Truckee. They're pretty different programs in those 2 places. So I can kind of share the pros and cons and let you guys start to think about what a program could look like. That's more than one sentence. That's a short paragraph.
Colin, I have a challenge statement for you for the July 15th. In Massachusetts, the Mass DOR allows property owners who are renting to take an abatement on their taxes. And so we've had some question here where we have year-round property owners who are taking their year-round exemption abatement on a property, but they may own another. And so is there an opportunity for you to work with Mass DOR and understand, can they take a second abatement if they're renting under market, and that could be stacked on top of your rooted rentals program? So if you could look into that, with us, and I think staff has some background on it. We ran into some understanding roadblocks with our local assessor, so I don't know if it's a Mass DOR question to flush out or not. Brooke?
There may be some disincentive at the assessor's office to offer more, tax rebates just because of the impact on other taxpayers. And I think that's the thing that probably the select board would want to review is what is the downstream impact of how many are there, if we were going to give the homeowners exemption to somebody's second property that they commit to year-round rent, I think is what Brian's talking about. What's the hit to tax revenue and from those properties, and what's the impact on other properties? Because it gets distributed elsewhere. Someone else has to pay it. It's within the levy limit. So I think there may be some resistance just in terms of it's a new idea. But I think some more time with the assessor's office might be useful as well from our perspective.
Any other questions on rooted renters for now, knowing we're having a full presentation on the 15th? Seeing none, Colin, thank you, and thank you. Jumping back onto the agenda, let's see, where do I go? Lisa, transfer fee study. Coming back to you, Christy.
Thank you. So in your packet, and again, this is publicly posted for anybody online, there's a pre-scope of services. And to give a little bit of background, the Martha's Vineyard Commission was interested in funding a study to look at the analysis of a transfer fee on affordable and attainable housing and the impact on the real estate market. This kind of would go hand in hand with our work on trying to secure a transfer fee for the islands, and being able to have clear data points and being able to talk about what the impact of transfer fee might have. Laura Silver, my counterpart on the Vineyard, she's the housing director over there, reached out to me to see if there was an interest in Nantucket partnering with the Vineyard. And so my first stop was to talk with Leslie Snell, our planning director, and see if the Nantucket Planning Commission, the NPDC, was interested in partnering with the Martha's Vineyard Commission. Their meeting is in 2 weeks. It's July. Oh my gosh, I don't know what month it is. July 14th. And so they'll take a vote, but initial conversation with the chair is that they would be very interested in partnering with the Affordable Housing Trust on this. The request that I have before you, it would be a split cost between the Martha's Vineyard Commission and the Nantucket Planning Commission. And that cost is just under $70,000. So split between both would be $35,000 each. And the request I'm proposing is that the trust contribute $10,000 to the study, and the request would be for NPDC to cover the remaining amount. So I'm happy to answer any questions or thoughts on that proposal.
Thank you, Christy. Open the floor to members. My first comment is that I think it would be nice to partner.
Brian, I'll make a comment.
The study and the impact. Go ahead, Abby.
Kind of similar. I think being a member of the NP and EDC, as is Brooke, I think when we think about initiatives that are truly regional in scope and that really can help improve our communities, I feel like this is a nice fit of what our purview is as the commission, and it's a way for us to even bring, because right now I would say on the commission we don't talk a ton about housing. I don't know, Brooke, if you feel the same. Like, we don't talk a ton about housing, but the fact that this could be a way to kind of bring that discussion up, and again partnering with another commission, I just think this would be a really good opportunity for us to you know, work with them and show that we're truly doing some of these regional initiatives, and you know, build a good relationship with Laura, who I know I met last year when she came over here to speak. I think it's a good idea from a commission standpoint, and so I obviously think it's also a good idea from the trust standpoint. I just think the idea of partnering is a step in the right direction for sure.
Thanks, Abby. Forrest and then Brooke.
From my perspective, it seems like a no-brainer to me. I mean, collaboration can only help us achieve our objectives, our goals in a quicker fashion. I do have a question through you, Chair, to Christy. Is there any, I don't even see any potential downsides or drawbacks to us partnering up with the Vineyard. Would there be kind of some cons to go along with the pros?
Through you, Chair, not that I can think of. I think this is a great collaboration, with the trust working with NPDC, and then with NPDC working with the Vineyard Commission. So I don't see any downfalls with that.
Thank you.
Brooke?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that the thing that the two islands have in common is that we have land banks for land conservation. We are the only two communities in Massachusetts who do. So in terms of creating a narrative to support the transfer fee to the legislature in Boston, having data about what the impact of the transfer fee for the land bank has had on real estate or not had, which is the argument we hear in Boston all the time, that it will suppress real estate sales, and they go on and on and on, the Massachusetts Association of Realtors. So having really hard data to poke holes in that narrative, because we are the only two communities who have this transfer fee. So this is an incredibly great opportunity for us to support the two islands in the effort to get a transfer fee for housing, the seasonal communities to get a transfer fee for housing, never mind the whole state. But I think when we start with the two of us, we are the smallest subset that has the most experience and potentially the most narrative impact on this argument up in Boston. This is really essential in my mind.
Thank you, Brooke. Any more questions, comments, or a motion to follow the staff recommendation to support a $10,000, Brooke?
I move approval.
Can you be a little bit more explicit?
I move that we allocate $10,000 to support the Donahue Institute study of the impact of transfer fee on the housing market.
Thank you, Brooke.
Jointly with NPNEDC and the Martha's Vineyard Commission.
Is
Second.
there a second? Second for Megan. Thank you. By roll call, Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Meg Browers,
Aye.
Forrest Bell,
Aye.
Abby DeMolina,
Aye.
Penny Dye, Sean Murphy, and Brian Sullivan's an aye. Okay, great. With that, that's all on that one, right, Christy? Yes. Moving down to transfer fees, select board quarterly report review. So I'll come to Christy and Dylan. Take the mic.
Thank you. So the housing department will be presenting to the select board at their July 23rd meeting. And I put in the packet kind of a highlight of what we'll be discussing. We typically do this every quarter and go over what the Affordable Housing Trust has been up to in terms of programs, housing production, and policy initiatives. So a lot of it is in there, but just a brief recap. I'll be going over where our grant funds have gone, focusing on the Richmond projects and Habitat for Humanity's project on Waite Drive, as well as the current RFPs that we have out, focusing on the completion of Wiggles Way, which was a huge success for us in this past quarter. Of course, the hiring of Dylan and our 3 summer interns, Chase, Tom, and Will. It's really great to have so much support staff helping us get through all of these programs and initiatives. And we'll be focused on kind of what's coming down the line in terms of possibly talking about the Rooted Renters program that we just got a little short tease about. And then we're possibly working with WPI students this summer in partnership with Remain to scope out underutilized second floor space in the commercial downtown. And how could that possibly be, what would it take for that to be turned into year-round housing? It's a very broad question, but something that we're still getting into the weeds with Remain. So some things on the horizon, and I always bring this to you guys to review before I put my presentation together for the select board in case there's anything you guys think about that I didn't.
Penny?
Yeah, I think we cannot, I think we need to use your quarterly reports as an opportunity to pound home the information of the number of units that have been created with public funds that are in perpetuity restricted. And I thought it was very effective at town meeting to be able to say, we have since 2019 created 344 units. I think we need to continue to get that word out there, whatever it may be.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Abby?
Yeah, quick, building on that, Penny, I think that's a great point. Chrissy, probably not for this meeting just because of the timing, but maybe going forward, we can see if we could align Florencia, like updating that flyer with your quarterly updates so that we have the latest flyer with each update. And that way, as we get closer to town meeting, we'll have a more current flyer. And so I think that might be a good idea to see if we can coordinate it going forward. Like I said, I don't know. I mean, because your slides are in a couple weeks. I mean, we could ask her if she could update it, but I think I like the idea of us being able to have that flyer updated going forward. And then you can just include it in your materials for your presentation, if anybody thinks that makes sense.
Thank you, Abby. Any other thoughts, questions, comments?
Yeah, just, and this is probably already in the works, but is it possible that you can, I know you give us your report in is it like a PowerPoint or something that you do?
Correct.
I'd like to be able to email that to people, link that and some of the stuff that I send out. I just think it would be helpful.
Yes, and through you, Chair, part of our strategy with Florencia is after my quarterly report to the select board, we'll have the quarterly report, sorry, the quarterly newsletter from the housing office.
Good.
So we'll tie the two with a link to the presentation, and we'll make sure, we've talked about this with you, Penny, about making sure that NARAB gets a copy of that as well.
That's great. Thank you. And I'm the person doing those communications, not very well, but if you get it to me, it'll get to them.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you, Christy. Item 10, board comments. I have one comment, Megan. Thank you for your years of service. I think this is today your last meeting. It's been a pleasure to work with you and appreciative of your efforts to date, and look forward to seeing you in the private sector doing more of this.
It's been an honor to serve on this trust board, so thank you.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment. Thank you, Megan. We'll miss you and good luck, and hopefully you won't be a stranger.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Meg, I'll see you around.
Other business. We have next meetings scheduled for July 15th and August 5th. Christy, is there any way we can not meet, that we can only meet one time in August, please?
Which one would you prefer?
I'll probably look if the flow of work made the second meeting work better, that would be great. The first week of August is an incredibly busy week on the island.
Okay.
I don't know, like, that's just a question. I don't know what we have in the agenda. Like, I don't want to slow down the effort or the work, but it's just seems like a challenge right now to keep everything going. That's my own personal opinion, and it's not about me.
So if I could recommend that we keep the 19th as a full meeting, and perhaps just keep the 5th on your calendar in case we need an executive session meeting.
Great.
Perfect. We'll send out an email to all the members.
Thank you. And Brooke?
You ready for a motion for executive
I
session?
sure am.
Okay, so I move that we close open session, not to go into executive session, not to return to open session for the items stated in the agenda.
Second.
Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
Go by roll call. Let's see. Meg Browers,
Hi.
Abby De Molina,
Aye.
Penny Dye,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Boris Bell,
Aye.
John Tom Murphy,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. Thanks, everybody. See you there.